Hello and welcome everybody, I'm Joshino and today we've got a 5 top champion concepts from you the viewers. Now this is actually a re-upload from an old video I did maybe 5 months ago, but one of the concepts was ripped completely off somebody else's work and it wasn't even related to this game. So I took the video down, contacted the person, they said they were okay with it, but I still wasn't happy with that and I always meant to re-upload it with an extra winner. So this time round I've re-uploaded it and the last one, the main winner, is a different entry that entered quite a while ago too. But the way my champion concepts have worked is people have been submitted them to competitioneno@gmail.com. and every time I just give out some patch related prizes to the winners, ranging from the best from first to maybe a chest or something on 5th. I've already picked all the winners for the next one, so be sure to watch out for that one. But enjoy all of these entries as you might not have seen it before. Also, something worth pointing out is the second place champion that I'll mention in a bit was actually designed before Terminus was released, but has a very uncanny resemblance to Terminus. It's actually crazy how much akin they are, but I got the entry before Terminus was even announced or even data mined, so that's pretty crazy. Anyway, enjoy the video everybody. So coming in at the 5th place, we have Ventus, Will of the Storm. Now this is a champion that looks a lot like Bomb King actually. Maybe he's from the same race, but more castle-y. I don't know what I was going for there, castle-y. He's more castle-y. He looks like a fortress, a walking fortress, but has all the telltales of the crystals of the realm embedded into their armor. So why this champion then? They're actually quite interesting in what they do. So they're a support, but also they have a lot of crowd control. So if we go to the first ability, the left click, the main attack, Wind Palm. You fire a slow moving projectile every second that slightly pushes enemies back and deals 350 damage. Now this is quite a low damage, but it also is kind of a mini Torvald ultimate right there just in your main attack. It's an interesting concept, and combined with all the other abilities could add some mayhem in displacing the enemy team. Your secondary ability is Thunderclap. You slam your hands together to create a short range shockwave that stuns for 1.5 seconds and deals 500 damage. Now this is almost a lot like the Terminus Slam right there, so that's always very powerful with the legendary card. So a little bit more crowd control there on this Ventus. And then moving on to their movement ability, a sort of escape. It isn't exactly the escape for you. It's almost a anti-escape for the enemy. So up, up and away is this ability. You grab an opponent and hurl them in the opposite direction you are facing whilst dealing 500 damage. Which I could see a lot of mayhem going on in here, especially with people trying to do the Makawa hook trick. You grab somebody, spin around as fast as possible to throw them backwards off the edge or something like that. I could see this being rather hilarious, and it's a pretty cool concept, especially if they're going behind you, because you won't be able to fire straight away back into them. But if you think about it, if you're throwing somebody back, and also your Wind Palm, your normal attack, if you spin around, and you keep firing at them off the edge, you're still going to be knocking them back. The only thing with all of these abilities, resilience is going to pretty hard counter all the stuff you're putting out here. Another interesting concept to this champion is Healing Winds. So it's on a 10-second cooldown, which is relatively long, but it creates an AoE storm around you to heal allies for 500 per second and pushes enemies away also, like all of your other abilities. And you can hold this ability down for up to 5 seconds. So it's a channeled ability, and it's almost like a Grok Totem, slightly better healing than the base Grok Totem, but also you have that effect of pushing away enemies, so flankers can't get in close when you're trying to heal somebody, and things like that. The only downside is they put a 10-second cooldown on this ability, so everything they've got here, they're kind of more of a supportive healer, like an extra healer like a Grover or Grok, that sort of thing, whilst being a utility elsewhere. And finally, the ultimate is also quite interesting in Safe and Sound. If activated, a 10-second cooldown starts, and if the health of an ally is reduced to 0 within this period, you charge towards that ally, and the ally becomes invulnerable for 2 seconds and regenerates 70% of their max health. It's not affected by Cauterize, so this is just almost like a mini Fernando ultimate just for one person, and then to also heal them up. It's kind of a cool concept, although how useful it would be, I'm not entirely sure, but if it goes off onto one of your flankers or damage dealers, then it could keep them up, it could let them get the kills. It's quite a cool concept that it brings them to full health, I could see this working out in animation-wise, like you follow the path of where a bot would follow, just as insanely fast, like you zip around like supersonic to that person that's almost going to die, and that's included in the 2 seconds that they are invulnerable. The only problem is it puts you next to the person that's dying, so they're probably dying because they might have been out of position or where damage is coming in, so you might be in the firing line once you get there. But at the same time, then you're going to get over to your ally straight away, and you can back them up, or they're back at 70% of their health, so there's 2 of you over there. It's just a very cool concept, and I think their opening statement, the quote here is, "Forward, I've got your back." So he's trying to go for a bit of a gruff voice, because he looks a bit like a gruff fellow, this Ventus, Will of the Storm. I found this one interesting because of all the CC, but also a slightly weaker side on the fact that it is kind of counterable when you get resilience, but that is also forcing out your enemy team to pick up the resilience, and I wonder whether they could have slightly more damage in the main attack, as it's 350 a second is not that great. Coming in at number 4 is Darwin the Mad Scientist. Tying into Charles Darwin right here. And right at the bat, one thing that caught me was partly the art. They've got a good theme going on, and you can tell they're pretty crazy by the face they're pulling. And also that perspective is kind of interesting on that drawing. Anyway, the kit is also something that is quite interesting. So let's start off with Nail Gun. A nail gun is loaded with rusty nails, deals 400 damage every 1 second. I just like how abrupt that is. It's just a gun loaded with rusty nails. It's such a sadistic thing. It's just like, well, that's pretty mean. And it deals, so it's a pretty low damage. But the next one is a lookout, and you attach a little sensor to the surrounding or enemies to reveal the position of nearby enemies, with a 15-second cooldown. That's quite long. But something interesting actually is the champion, Vivian, that has been data mined, also has some kind of sentry drone to show enemies, so that's something that ties into what we might actually be getting next patch. The next ability is Bad Touch. You absorb all shots for 2 seconds and apply a poison effect that deals 10% max HP damage over 4 seconds to enemies that attack you. It's almost like the Grok Ghost Walk, but people can still actually hit you, so especially people that have AoE damage, or you can jump in front of your allies or body block, then they're going to get that damage effect to them. It's kind of an interesting little touch and twist to having a bit of immunity. So next up is Leprosy. This is one of my favourite abilities here. It's area damage, and what you do is you self-destruct that deals 1000 damage to nearby enemies. So you don't need to jump off the edge anymore to stop the enemies from getting any credits. You just need to blow yourself up with this leprosy in a puff of plague-ridden stench and filth, and it'll damage your enemies. And it's a big damage, so you can basically take out an enemy with you, and it's just generally going to be a funny ability. In other games, I mean, in Overwatch, you've got Junkrat, which sort of drops the grenades at the end and can kill an enemy. But there's also in Dust 2, you've got Pudge, which basically can kill themselves with their own rot. So it'd be interesting to have something like that in Paladins as well. That's a really cool little effect there. And finally, the ultimate is 10th Plague. Not messing around here. So you apply a poison effect that deals 50% max HP over 20 seconds to all enemies that are alive. And the thing is, it's over 20 seconds. That's a long time. Thing is, if you have this on you, you're not going to get out of combat, and you're going to be struggling to heal for a little bit. Okay, something I didn't notice, actually coming back to it, is that the lab coat has a symbol for life in basic alchemy, and the symbol on the gun is a symbol for death. That's just a nice little touch there, just adding to the character. Another thing that they've added here is a few of the voice lines for this champion. They gave a little bit of a backstory that they're basically crazy because of a disease, and they became obsessed with hunting crystals and taking them from other champions. Now, some of the voice lines are quite funny. So First Blood is nailed it, just trying to get a bit crazy there. So the kill streak, I took many and I will take more. There's actually some funny character-specific kill taunts. So the one for Leanne is Nail. Just obviously it's Leanne backwards, Nail. That's pretty cool. And to Androxus, I am death. As in taunting him that he's not death. So that was Darwin, and coming in at number 4. So coming in at number 3 is Yoru, Azuras' Apprentice. Now, before I jump into the kit, there's quite a bit explaining this character, as they're sort of a dual character. So it's a duo support champion, and the main gimmick is that there's 2 characters in one, and you'll basically be able to play them at the same time or separately with the ability to switch between them at any time. So their main fire is just shooting a simple projectile, but their F skill changes with each of the characters. One of the characters is a basic monk healer, and the F skill is a basic heal, and the other character is a buff spirit ghost whose F skill is a strong rushing punch. This already makes them fairly special among the cast of characters we have, but their main strength lies in the fact that they can separate. So you basically can play a single character, and the other one will automatically focus on another player, and you can set it to either healing or doing damage depending on the character you're sending out. And he says that this will be weaker than when you're doing it yourself for balance purposes, and you can do completely separate job while they're off doing their own thing after you send them out, like a bot almost. And when the characters are separated, they'll also have their own health pools and can die separately, but they'll resurrect once you use your ultimate or die and respawn together. And what they say is they'll have a bigger health pool when they're together, which is the most interesting concept I think about this champion. They also added a little bit of story saying that they also went along to train with Buck's monks. In fact, Buck was supposed to be like these monks fighting together as a pair, but Buck didn't complete his training and has to use a shotgun instead. So all of that out of the way, the Spirit Orb fires orbs of spirit energy every 0.75 seconds for 400 damage per shot. Separate and send out your partner to either assault an enemy or heal allies, and you can quickly regroup with your partner if you're already separated. So your escape ability is heal or Mac Punch depending on which character you're playing and which one you sent out. So on the healer, you heal an ally for 500 health per second for 3 seconds, which is not the biggest heal in the game. It's almost like a Grok Totem, but less time with slightly more healing. However, your big spirit will quickly lunge forward and strike enemies in front of you for 600. So your stand, wait a second. No JoJo references here. Will quickly lunge forward and strike enemies in front of you for 600 seconds if you're playing that one. So your Q is your switch out to switch between the partners and assume control of them regardless of their distance and effect. And your ultimate is Blazing Strike, so quickly regroup and team up with your partner to slowly advance and punch rapidly, trapping enemies in a flurry of fists and energy. Deals 650 damage every second and lasts for 5 seconds. So the interesting thing is that the main attack is the same between both of them when you're together. There's actually a character in Gigantic called Ailing where they have like a dual character sort of thing where they send out the ghost too. So the ghost has a sword and a shield and the main character has a sword. So it's kind of interesting having something like that in Paladins, which is why it really drew me to this champion. Up in second place, Prasanthi the Predestined, and the second non-fully humanoid champion in the lineup of the ones I've picked out this time round. So this is an almost Centaurian champion. They look somewhat along the lines of sort of the aesthetics of the Terminus in some of the crystal work that they've got going on. The shield almost looks like parts of the Terminus body coming off. It pretty much looks awesome. You've got a crystal shield, a crystal weapon, and I really like the design. But let's go ahead. So appointed by the Shard to wield its power, Prasanthi alone can command its twin embodiment of shield and mace. With the strength of the Centaurids and the Shard's ability to channel damage taken into damage produced, Prasanthi can ultimately turn her enemy's energy against them. As a frontliner, she races to move forward, pushing towards her goal with her allies behind her. I go. I don't think I can do a female voice, but they've got a quote here, so I'm going to go for it. I go where the Shard commands me to go, even it means through you, Prasanthi. That was a terrible female voice, but I think you get the gist. And they've also given some more art here. It almost looks like from a Disney movie, or like a Disneyfied Avatar face, I think, on the character designs. The other awesome thing that I thought came with this concept, a lot of it's to do with the art, but they've like sort of shown the designs for each of the abilities and how they're going to work. So the first ability is Conversion. So the Shard produces a barrier of light which converts all damage taken into energy and percentage damage supplied to the mace, your main attack. It also shows that your shield is going to glow more and more due to how much of the damage taken and energy you have charged up. From channeling the energy stored with the Shard, she can then release a burst of light to damage enemies in a rapid succession for a short period. Again, a little concept here of a firing at the Willow, taking a little bit of blast there. It's almost like the Terminus ability, but is going to be more integral to her normal attack. The second ability is Shield Throw. Hurl the shard towards your enemy and will explode the energy stored within your shield upon contact. If the shard has a 50% charge, the shield thrown will stun the enemy hit. Also another little touch there. The alternate fire, Prasanthi will swing the mace in an arc in front of her, damaging those close to her. This ability has 3 charges, and all must be used to begin the cooldown. Another attack if you're not getting anywhere with charging up the shield. The ultimate is Unleash the Shard. Feel the stampede beneath your feet. Combining the shield and the mace together, Prasanthi will plunge the shard into the earth. This will shatter forward in a straight line, crippling and damaging any enemies that dare to take her on head first. And it does not need line of sight to do damage to enemies. So, in this little concept for her, she throws up her mace, all the power, and the shield goes into the top, combining, which I've shown off, and then bam, the explosion in front of her, and you can see the Ying's not very happy about that, and also the ruckus behind her, both on the payload, so it's going through the payload in this little diagram, hitting the ruckus in the back. Ruckus is thrown out of bolt, and doesn't look very happy at all. Those guys are really taken out. The other awesome thing I thought about this concept, I mean, it's a bit more vague with the abilities, but they made up with that in the concept of how everything's going to look. So they've even given a first-person view sort of little point of view thing going on, the preview, with the shard mace pointed forwards and your shield out front. The other funny thing that I was laughing at was the extra, the mount, question mark, question mark, question mark. The mount's just looking at the chrysanthemum, just like, dude, what's going on? Is this a horse person? They don't belong here. So it might be very difficult for this champion to have a mount. And unfortunately might be the reason why hi-rez would never consider this, because they don't want to lose out on that mount monies. Now this champion does share a lot with the Terminus, and also I wonder how the conversion is going to work out if people aren't shooting into it, so probably be best if there's a base amount, which I think they're showing actually is like 10%. So you'd still be able to fire off your energy shards. So I think it'd be better if the energy shards were based on an extra percentage damage from the charge you get with your conversion, as that would work out better. And it could be a twist on the Terminus in the fact that your main attack is your distance attack rather than getting into people's faces. And the shield throw is also something that's pretty cool, and also could have a base damage too that's amped up by the charge. So the 50% charge with a stun could be the bonus that's going for it. But what I really liked about this champion is the whole concept. They look like you can just fit straight into the Paladins realm. This champion could just slot straight into the game right now. Apart from the mount issue, I could just see them there. Maybe even instead of Terminus being in the game, this champion could have been dropped in there. And also there's a lot of humour going on in what they've done. There's just a lot of character, and I like that. Finally, crawling into first place is Roche, the Explorer. Now, Roche is a homunculus arachnid chimera. Take the homunculus part, she's a grown human. They have given the age 3, but there is a good reason for this. So, she was created by an alchemist as an assassin to be sold off to the highest bidder, but she didn't want any of that and developed her own interest for exploration. She escaped and ran into a very old inventor. The old man took her in and taught her the ways of being a decent person. A year passed and the old man passed away, and she headed out into the world with newfound knowledge and drones from this creator for advanced exploration. Danger is never far for her, as the alchemist that created her keeps sending out chimeras to try and bring her back. With this, she has now become very versed in making mines and traps that would slow down her would-be pursuers. Until this day, she travels around to find new and interesting things. So she is part spider, which is the chimera part, like the combination of two beings. Her class is a damage dealer, and base, she has 2500 HP. He's also given some trivia for Roche. Roche does not have human arms, the ones under the sleeve are spider limbs too, and you can actually see the little spider feetsies out of the sleeves. She uses her lower spider legs for running, because lol, high heels again, like her legs are hanging above where her feet, spider feet are touching. She's meant to be very tall, but still not as tall as Anara. Something interesting about homunculus in Wikipedia, they're referred to as small humans. Obviously in Full Metal Alchemist, if you've ever watched that, it's an anime, and they're like just fully grown beings, but whether or not she's a bit shorter and the spider part's bigger. She can eat humans, but chooses not to, as human food tastes better than actual humans, which I think is a pretty good reason. The mines are actual miniature drones, to use in exploring and mapping areas, which we'll come back to in the abilities. And being a homunculus arachnid chimera, she is ageless thanks to the Philosopher's Stone on her back, but she is not immortal. Homunculus and chimeras have very short lifespans without the stone, apparently. That's a little bit of lore and extra information about the character. So there's a passive ability here, which is spider legs, which obviously has, where she can climb over walls up to 2 floors high. So think Genji and Hanzo Shimada in the way that they climb up a wall, and they could go over the top if it's short enough. So it's basically like a wall climb here. The main attack is Needle Barrage with 100 ammo, pretty insane, but 1.5 second reload time and 50 damage per shot every 0.5 seconds, and 50% bonus damage to health. It fires a barrage of needles from her back arms and is very similar to Ruckus' initial spread, but accuracy gets better the longer she shoots instead of getting worse. Low damage to shields and deployables since its main damage is from poison, but very effective against actual health. There's a legendary card, Corroding Poison, to boost her damage on shields and deployables by 100%. That's interesting. The next ability is Web Trap. This is a 10-second cooldown, and she throws out balls of webs from her main arms, and enemies that walk over it are slowed. She tosses 2 web balls with 1 second delay before the second shot. And the legendary card will root enemy players for 1.5 seconds instead. Again, quite an interesting way of A, slowing down the enemies, try and catch up with them and do your damage, and also the root to just put people in place. It would work a lot like Grover's legendary too. Next ability is Spider Mines, with a 10-second cooldown once again, throws mines similar to Kinessa's. So mines burrow into the wall or the ground, and a blinking pad will be visible. Enemies that get close to it will trigger the mines. They'll jump out and latch onto the enemy, and after 2 seconds it explodes, dealing 300 damage and a 1-second stun. Enemies that have been stunned will have stun resist from the mines for 5 seconds, so if they get 2 on them, then the second one won't do anything within that 5 seconds. And the mine will also detach after the enemy has ran a certain distance, similar to Bomb King's bomb dropping off. So they could potentially run away from the stun, but obviously it might take them outside the action. I think this one's cool as well. It's an interesting stun one because they have a chance to get rid of it. It's got that bit of a kink that if somebody's fully going for you and in your face, and they can still take you out before that stun goes off, but it's also a risk they have to take as well. Next up, the escape ability is Mind Step, with once again a 10-second cooldown. There's a bit of a theme here. It's a jump based on your movement ability which leaves a mine behind. Mines work similar to Spider Mine, but is not affected by stun resist from the first Spider Mine, so basically a second one that could stack on top of the other one. He said there'd be a legendary card here as well that instead of exploding and stunning, the mine will root an enemy for 2 seconds instantly. Which is again is quite an interesting concept. So if you jump next to somebody, or if you're like right in their face, it'll go off, root them, and you still be able to shoot at them whilst they were stuck in place. Finally, the big badaboom is the ultimate spider drone. What happens is Roche throws down the drone that she carries around on her back and pilots it remotely. It has 2,000 health points, and the drone is considered deployable, so could be affected by Bulldozer, and has the same movement speed as a mounted player. Sounds crazy. This ultimate lasts for 10 seconds, but once you use your left click, your main attack, the drone will lock itself down and activate a frontal shield of 1,000 health points, and in this turret mode can fire unlimited poison needles for 4 seconds, your normal attack. However, if Roche is hit during the ultimate herself, the ult automatically cancels. So this is quite an interesting one. So she's obviously putting down a deployable, and Roche will stop moving and not be able to do anything during this duration, so she's quite vulnerable. But then you also have just basically a free extra life almost with another player, and it's interesting because like in Overwatch, Junkrat has his tire bomb, but that just explodes and does damage. But here you're actually controlling something that you have to have skill with and fire around and aim with, and I think that's kind of a more interesting way of doing it. Again, you've only got 10 seconds with it, and it can be destroyed, and if she herself gets attacked, then it will go completely too. I think maybe there would need to be the added fact that you'd have to use the ultimate outside of your spawn room, otherwise you'd just be invulnerable, which would be crazy. And even if you're right next to your spawn room, at least an enemy could actually get to you theoretically and take you out. All in all, between the art, she just looks generally awesome, although it is very anime-ified, but the designs on the drone on her back, thinking about all the dimensions and just the way this champion works as like sort of a part human, part arachnid type being is awesome, I think. Anyway, what did everybody else think about all of these champion concepts? And again, it is a re-upload except for this last one, which was in the last round. and I will be having another one out very shortly, probably by the end of the week, if not the weekend. I'm also thinking about the setup of this sort of contest, I guess. Before I was doing it for prizes and set prizes, but the stuff that you get from hi-rez, there seems to be less skins that you get every time as somebody that's a content creator, and it does make it a bit harder to judge the entries. I don't know whether what people think, or if anyone has any ideas on how to continue this contest, or whether people would be interested in just submitting them just for exposure, as long as their names are read out and their concepts are shown off. Be sure to let me know in the comments section below, and if you enjoyed the video or found it insightful, then hit that like button, subscribe for more of my content, and hit the bell icon to become part of the notification squad. Thanks for watching, everybody. Joshino.